Now live to the Eastern Cape, where the CEO Grant Pattisson joins us via Skype from his home there. Grant, thank you so much for joining us. You took to Twitter today and have systematically gone through this report that was in the Sunday Times. You've lambasted the newspaper for going with this article. Why have you done so?
Yeah, it's quite simple, really. Edcon's financial problems have been widely reported, and we've been having troubles for several years. We're actually quite close to completing a transaction involving various stakeholders, landlords, other investors. And unfortunately, a document as part of that transaction was obviously leaked to the Sunday Times, therefore giving them the incorrect perception of what was going on. I'm actually feeling quite good this weekend because I think we've got a deal, and I think we'll be able to recapitalize Edcon, get rid of all the debt, and run for several years, giving us time to fix the business properly.
Now, as you've just said, you've admitted that the business has been in trouble for a few years. It's a very important business in South Africa's business landscape of over 90 years. But escalating debt has been an issue. Do you then have a problem with the way in which this article was written and not so much the facts contained or the content of that article?
Correct. It's not so much the content. It's the fact that I would have preferred, and I asked the newspaper, that we were within days of signing an agreement, some of which that article is accurate on, some of which it is not accurate on, and asked them just for a week until we've actually signed it, and then we can announce the deal. And the deal would say stakeholders get together to ensure Edcon's future, rather than the misleading headline, Edcon crashes. And so, I think it's an unfortunate and unnecessarily way to publish an article.
So your concern there being that it would, the article published in the way that it has would bring panic, I suppose, to the many thousands of employees that depend on their jobs from Edcon.
Correct. We're not playing games here. These are tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people whose lives depend somewhat on Edcon. I certainly, and the management team and all the staff at Edcon, are doing our very, very best to make sure that we keep the company going and fix it. And so to sell a few newspapers, I think is unfair.
Now, the main part of the article says that you, as the retailer, has asked landlords of your stores for a 2-year 41% rent holiday, as it's called in your part of the business, in exchange for a stake in the business. Do you care to give us details around whether or not that is correct as part of the deal that you are working on?
Yeah, that detail, is certainly accurate at a point of time. However, deals are a negotiation. And so what final structure we end up, how the landlords help us, who the investors are, whether or not who will do what for who, what will be asked for in return for these favors is yet to be determined. We are still negotiating those deals. And therefore, the picture that's painted by the article that is the way in which the landlords are going to agree to help us is actually absolutely incorrect. I think some landlords may agree to help us. Others may agree to help us in other ways. And therefore, the detail in the article in that respect is misleading.
In terms of the deal that you are working on, whether or not it goes through, you say you're quite close to signing it up. Is there still a risk that jobs might be lost going forward?
Well, look, certainly if we can't complete this deal, the company is at risk. I think, again, that's been widely reported and well known. So, what I would rather say is if the deal is done, and we get the support as is currently verbally agreed to, but it just needs to be reduced to writing, then Edcon will shrink only a few stores, maybe 100 or 200 stores over the next 3 years. And what commitment we've given to our staff is that when we close one of those smaller stores, we're keeping the big ones, then their jobs will be guaranteed and they'll be able to move into the closest store to them. So we are trying to shrink the company responsibly to a profitable size, but do it so in the most responsible way.
We've been reading repeatedly over the last few years, as the economy has been going through troubled times, that big retailers such as yourself have been struggling, slowing consumer demand being part of the problem, yours being escalating debt. We saw businesses like Stutterford's, who was also a department store, closing its doors not so long ago. What is the core problem with Edcon, especially when you're looking at stores like your landmark or your trademark Edgar's stores?
Well, if I'm honest, I don't think where Edcon finds itself today is as a result of the tight consumer environment we're experiencing today. Obviously, that makes it harder to turn around, but that's not how we got here. We got here through over-leverage back in 2007, opening too many stores, a strategic error in our fashion where we thought that responding to international retailers was to launch more international brands, whereas actually we should have gone to more private brand. And then also we sold our credit book in 2002. So there's been a bunch of strategic errors that have got us here. I think we are addressing all those strategic errors. The current consumer environment isn't helpful in turning the company around, but it's not the reason we got here.
Now, I think you'd agree that communication around business issues like this, especially when people's livelihoods are at stake, is very important. Have you been ensuring that all of your employees are being kept up to speed on how you are charting your way forward, both for your business and, of course, for their jobs as well?
Yes. Look, I communicate monthly in a newsletter to all staff. I've met with all the senior management over the last few months. So everyone in Edcon, our suppliers, our landlords, our bankers, our board, our shareholders, they're all aware of the situation we're in. So I think we've communicated well there. Obviously, we don't communicate that to the broader public. We are a retailer. We rely on the public to believe in our businesses. And so that's why this article is unfortunate, is it creates a negative perception, perhaps in some consumers' minds at the wrong time of the year. Whereas, in fact, if you go to one of our stores, CNA, Edgar's, Jet, you'll see fantastic stores full of customers. In fact, yesterday we had one of our best sales days ever. And so, it's another headwind which we who are trying to save the company have to fight against.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there for now. Edcon CEO Grant Pattisson coming to us live from the Eastern Cape. Thank you so much for coming on to address those concerns.